Yeah. 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 Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of River City 93. I'm Matt. I'll be hosting our conversation today, and I'm joined with only one other voice today. It's Kate. Kate, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I came from a day on the links I was at a work golf fundraiser. I don't know anything. I learned a lot about golf today. I didn't know much going in. I wouldn't say I'm an expert coming out, but learned a lot, had a lot of fun, and talked a lot all day. So my voice is still not in great shape, especially after the excitement that was Saturday night. The epic highs and lows of USL 1 football.
Absolutely. Doing a whole hell of a lot now to really change up that University of Richmond young professional vibe right here of spend the whole day out on the golf course.
Exactly. I wore my U of R hat so that any alums might see it and connect. And one gentleman did, class of 1974. I'm class of 2020. So we just missed having overlapping reunion years. What a shame, but he taught me a new spider handshake that he made up himself. So I'll be debuting that to as many of my U of R friends as I can.
Sure. Why not? So, in addition to West End secret society handshakes, we're really here to talk about today is what I found to be a very confusing game on Saturday. Kickers played Westchester SC, first time ever, and yeah, Westchester's a team that we know is throwing around some cash, has a lot of notable names, notable faces. Speaking of throwing around the cash, if you care to support River City 93 and be able to help us keep going, head over to rivercity93.com/support. Make a donation. Go a long way in helping us remain great, just like the Kickers are. There, that's called a segue.
Beautifully done.
Yeah, absolutely didn't forget to mention that before I got into it at all. But yeah, Westchester coming in, featuring some familiar faces, and it was a roller coaster, of a game from high highs to low lows to more high highs. It's hard to say that it wasn't a game that would excite the neutrals, quite a bit. Unfortunately, we're not neutrals. If you're listening to this podcast, I'm guessing that you are not a neutral, by nature. That you're probably a little bit of a sicko.
Just a little.
Yes. Good news is that's why we're here. Really lean into the sickoness. Speaking of sickos, here.
Sickos.
What's going on, my man?
Oh, doing all right. Tired. Stressful past few days, soccer wise.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into the actual proper, 90, 100, minutes on the field, from Saturday, big news dropped midweek. The Kickers got a fresh new look. It's blue. What do we think of? Is this the City kit? Is that the name of it?
Yeah. I think the shout out, the Twitter account, I hate your club, I hate your kit. Sorry, I'm getting the name wrong to the esteemed Twitter denizen. Who raised the question, why is it a City kit when it's blue? And someone said maybe there's a relationship to blue of the river city. Maybe that's why blue was chosen to represent the city in this because every kit needs a name. You can't just drop a kit anymore. It has to have a name. It has to have a story. It has to have an origin. So through leaps of logic, maybe not obvious to the naked eye, it is blue. It is the city kit. And I have to agree with, I'm not a Celtic fan myself, but as someone who is sympathetic to the Celtic cause, the Rangers similarities in this kit are a little difficult when you put them side to side, which is not a great club necessarily to have the exact replicated kit of for many folks. So that does temper my excitement a little bit, especially with the new logo, which is eerily similar to the Rangers logo as well.
Okay. Chenier, what are your thoughts on the Blues?
I'm not even going that deep into it. My question is, since when? That's just that. Since when is blue? Does blue have anything to do with the kicker? Honestly, it's just, to me, it's extremely random. Green, I can understand. Black, I can understand. Dark red, I can understand. But blue, like, what?
Yeah. I didn't mind them as much as I thought I would. So I think I like that it's more of a navy blue instead of like a royal blue that you see a lot
A
of teams,
Westchester blue, one might say.
or Charlotte, or some of those. So it's a little bit different. The collar is a nice contrast to what we see from a lot of the shirts, and the fact that the collar is white, I think, pops a little bit more against kind of that navy blue. Uh, it looks perfectly good, perfectly fine. I think the only thing I wish was a little bit different with it, and it worked better on the field than I thought it would, but if they had worn that with white shorts, I thought it would have been top notch. I think the navy on navy, it's okay, but I think it could have had that extra little bit hit.
I do appreciate that it didn't have an extra design on it, because I think that's the trap of Hummel, because you're allowed so much customization that teams just go as far as they possibly can in the customization direction. So I appreciate that they restrained themselves and stuck just to, I guess, the collar as the detail, and didn't decide to do another subtle print in the background or anything. Just, yeah, kits can be one color. It's okay.
Absolutely. And also, the one part that I think will be super cool, maybe the timing's not quite right on it, as we're getting into the summer months, but the fact that it's going to be available in long sleeve. I'm a child of the '90s. I love a long sleeve, jersey. As a result, so that part is a positive choice in my opinion.
True.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I think the kit looks nice. I just it's just random to me, and it just doesn't have anything to do with the picture, history wise or other.
Yeah. No, and as everyone was saying, we had a couple players that we considered singing "You Looked Better in Red," but unfortunately, no on field red. So I guess in theory, they would have looked better in red. Everybody had blue on.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So speaking of guys who look better in red, or I guess green, as the case may have been, they're here. Let's hop in, the game. And one of the, I think, signature matchups on the field, especially in the first half, was Darwin Espinal versus our old friend Stephen Payne. I enjoyed this matchup, y'all.
Oh yes. Oh yes. That was, as much as I feel we didn't get a lot of season two. We I wish we had gotten more from him, because he was a great player. He is a great player, but it just felt good to see Espinal just kind of giving him some trouble the whole game.
I think you're underplaying this, my man. He did not give him trouble. He ate him up. He took. You know, we already started making religious allegories. Earlier with the Celtic Rangers comparison. I'm going to go all in right here. It's the Holy Weekend. He adopted that boy, and then he absolutely just sent him back to Child Protective Services because that was abuse on the field right from minute 2. When simple ball over the top, Darwin just trucks him. Runs him over without fouling, walks right in the box, and slots right around the keeper into the net. 1-0, second minute. You cannot ask for a better start than that.
I hadn't even gotten my beer yet. I was still in line. I missed the whole thing. The smoke had hardly cleared from the kickoff smoke.
That was my question. That was my. I'm watching the broadcast and I'm like, with the glare. I don't know if it's because of the glare of the sun on the smoke. I was like, can Section O even see that they scored a goal? Like, the smoke was
yes,
still
yes, you
hanging
could.
over Section O. Oh, okay. Because it looked bad. Like I could not see Section O at all. I just saw the smoke, and it's probably because of the glare of the sun off of the smoke made it seem very opaque.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that Stephen Payne. I don't know how they do it in Massin, and I guess now in Westchester, but we do things a little differently today, this season in Richmond, Virginia, and you need to put up a little bit more fight than that. And it's not that it necessarily maybe went downhill from there because that's a pretty low place to start, but it didn't get better for him in that matchup.
Oh, really, Kate? Why would you say that? Did something happen around like the 30th minute?
We often say we want another one just like the other one. And lucky for us, Darwin Espinal seems to have plenty where the first one came.
Yeah.
Yeah, he might be our new Golden Boot guy.
Yeah, I mean that's five goals now for Darwin. This one, I don't know, it wasn't enough this time just to make Stephen Payne look foolish and go around and beat him. He decided to flick the ball over the keeper, dribble around him, beat another guy in there, 3-on-1 in the box. No big deal. I got this. And then just the simplest pass into the net, left them all in the dust. Makes it 2-1 at that point. And it's hard not to feel really good about what Darwin's been bringing to this team in April. In particular, 4 goals in his last 3 games for the club.
7 goal contributions in 7 matches as well. So his assists are keeping his numbers up.
Absolutely. We were talking preseason about we needed another goal dangerous threat. Where's that help going to come from? I don't think we foresaw somebody this far passing Emmy's goal contributions this early on. I don't think any of us are upset about it.
Yeah, somebody on Twitter said, I can't believe it took this long for him to make it to the USL 1. Obviously, Misa has been a great league for a couple years, but there is an opportunity. I'm trying to be generous. I'm trying to, maybe understand why these circumstances have been this long, but it is true that it's really, especially someone who's, he's not 22. He's not like a kid, freshly breaking out. He's someone who's been playing pro ball for years and years.
Yeah, Chenier, coming from the coaching eye, what are you seeing that's, Darwin's bringing, to this team that's allowing him to be so effective?
I don't know. I think he just has a knack for. He has the creativity that I think a lot of players lack. Um, he just we have a lot. One thing that kickers have rarely lacked, ever since I've watched them play back in 2012, is hard workers. Just people that are willing to put their body on the line and fight and just just be bulldogs on the field. But when you match that with the the creativity, it, it it's undeniable. I see a little bit of it in Emmy as well, um, especially when he first started playing. Like you see a little bit of that go getter bulldog attitude matched with this ingenuity of being creative in tight spaces, knowing exactly what to do and thinking on your feet. I think there's a lack of that going around, especially here in the States. But there is the argument that Pep killed soccer with his pass, basically basketball routine, running plays type of soccer. But it's starting to kind of become that very structured, very you know, very strict, and you don't get a lot of. Just for example, we've complained a lot before the past couple seasons about how it's funny how the kicker never shoot from outside the 18. Well, look at look the past couple of years, we've had players that have had the wherewithal to be like, you know what, I'm going to crack one from distance. Um, before I'd say before Darren came along, the only long distance goal I remember was the Jason Geisley goal. Cross comes in, late run, almost literally on the outside the box, volley in, and it was like that was the first time I had ever seen that at City Stadium ever. And it's like after all these years, and you guys scared to shoot from outside the box, and now here we go. We have SNL has hit several from outside the box. Joyford hit one from outside the box, didn't he? I think Bolaños got a few when he was playing for us. Um, of course, we had Joey G. It's just the names are adding up the closer we get to now, and I like that. Give me something special. Give me some more flair. That it shouldn't look like a scrappy goal every single time.
Yeah, yeah, and so you mentioned one name in there that also made a return to City Stadium, supposedly.
Well,
On
he was
Saturday.
there. He physically was there.
Can anybody prove that? Because much like Darwin, had his dominance on the field. Simon Fix, collected his own Jonathan Bolaños bobblehead and started a collection with that because that was ownership on the wing.
Mm-hmm.
There like Simon shut him down time and time again, and really made Bolaños a non-factor in that game. And he was a guy we were worried might be able to stretch the defense.
Yeah, and then the one opportunity he did get fluffed.
But you don't
Yeah.
you don't think taking a shot that goes out for a throw-in further back than when you shot it is good?
I think that was yeah. For Johnny B, I'm gonna pretend I didn't see that, but I would say that the reason why Bolaños was ineffective, first of all, yeah, Fitz shut him down for pretty much the whole game, but I think I don't know if Westchester suits him because if you see the way he was playing when he was with us, that's not how Westchester is playing, and he's not. I don't think he's given that same freedom that he had when he was playing for the Kickers, and it doesn't suit him. And I don't know how long this is gonna last before he ends up keeping town and heading to another team because I don't know if Westchester fits him at all.
Look,
he's a better player than that.
We might be able to find space for a Darwin backup. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
That's big shoes to fill.
If he's willing to grind and
playing now.
Yeah. So, but yeah, in a way, you could say the Kickers were playing 13v9 for a good amount of the game.
Yeah, it was It was impressive because Westchester as a club seemed to look like they were trying to make a statement in their signings when, in the off season they signed some big names for USL 1, one of whom got on the score sheet, one of whom, there seems to be he might have the golden boot and penalties by the end of the season. Obregon might. But they were assembling a, some names to know from around the league. Some people have made a name for themselves, but so far, and they started hot, first one or two, and they played decent in the Open Cup, but haven't really looked like a team that does plays like a team. Like they have these names, but they haven't actually seen a huge amount of cohesion. I mean, 4 goals against the Kickers is something, but Kickers have been conceding goals this season. Kickers have been conceding goals for season after season after season.
Yeah, we'll get into how the Kickers were unfortunately in the holiday spirit of charity a little later on.
Mm-hmm. We had a Darwin Espinal lookalike on the field as well. Somebody who saw the success that he's been having shooting outside the box and decided to take a stab at it himself.
Yeah. So one thing I did want to be able to address that the Kickers rolled out there with a little bit differently. Yeah, I think most of us could have probably guessed 10 out of the 11 slots in that lineup on Saturday. If anybody wants to be able to claim that they predicted Hayden Anderson would be playing, kind of in the 9 slot, come talk to me because I don't believe you for 1 second. What did y'all think of that move that Darren rolled out there? Hayden, not a big guy, but he is a motor on the field, and in terms of what he brought to that spot up front. Do you like it? Not like it?
I actually liked it because the one thing I saw was, I mean, first of all, I think, of course, ESPN on the broadcast are the only people that got the lineup right. Spot Mob had Joyford up top, and Google on the USL had like O'Dwyer up top. It was weird. It was weird. They had Powder playing center back. I don't know. But it was interesting to see it. I think it perfectly. He was playing basically a false 9 position, a little bit, and he would kind of sneakily drop a little deeper than Darwin and Matt, and he'd make those late runs, and that's when we see the goal he scored, his first goal. That's literally he's dropping back so deep. The center backs are basically on some should I stay or should I go? But granted, it was just an absolutely atrocious decision from I think it's Pierre, one of their center backs, who just decides to charge forward and just leave this giant pocket of space that the left back can't really cover. And he just runs into that space. So I don't think he was exactly poised to play as an outright 9, and he did a very good job playing as that false 9, sneaking in late and causing just complete confusion on the Westchester defense.
Mm-hmm. I think also one thing, this is obviously like a very surface level comparison, but the Kickers have been playing with a target forward who is not gifted in the height department for season after season and know how to construct goals that don't depend on the ball pinging off someone's forehead in the 6-yard box. But legs do give out the older a player gets, and Hayden is, if anything, he's similar to Kirkland in his Energizer Bunny status. The ball would be playing around the back and you could see him. He'd put his head down and he would start chasing that ball regardless of, whether or not he actually really thought he was going to get there. But because he knew you're out there, you're running, you're putting in the work, you're trying to put pressure on the back line while they're in possession. And while the kickers are building up, you have your role that is not, glued to the center back. And so the kickers know how to play with a striker who is shorter. And so, I think Chenier pointing out like he's dropping a little deeper because, he's not a player who's going to be getting his forehead on the ball in the 6-yard box. He's not playing as a traditional striker in that regard. So but he has a little bit more of industry that Emmy might not currently have in his legs because of, where they are in their career. So you get a little bit more of that energy. He maybe has 60 minutes to put that shift in. And he was running from minute 0. And you could tell he wanted that goal bad when he got an opportunity, it was pinging around in the box. It fell to his foot and he put his laces through it, but straight at the keeper. And he had his head down for about 30 seconds after that. You could tell he was gutted that he didn't make something more of that he didn't actually challenge the keeper, that he didn't actually, put that anywhere except directly into his hands, because he did put in a good shift. And you could tell that he wants a goal at home. That goal at the beginning of the season. There's now been a lot of goals scored by the Richmond Kickers, and he hasn't been among them yet again. So you could tell that he really wants his goal, but the work rate off the ball was impressive.
Yeah, and all the stuff you guys said, he I think did a great job of starting the press real high. Like those Westchester defenders did not enjoy being bothered by him, and it resulted in some turnovers. It maybe should have been able to capitalize a little bit more on a few of those, but it absolutely could have been something where he could have we saw it in the second half. Their keeper fell down, and unfortunately he didn't hit the net on that one. But that doesn't just happen by accident. It happens because you're putting them under pressure. Like even with his 5 foot small number height, going up against some big boys on that team. Like Westchester had a lot of well built, healthy boys on that side. He was going up, not necessarily challenging for the long balls, because I think he knew that this ain't happening, but he was almost going up, to purposely, try to block and deflect the second ball, coming out and being a nuisance on that level. It looked like, to me, and that's unusual. Usually, everybody just goes for the initial launched ball and you try to win it. Maybe there's a deflection there. No, he was always playing like next level, pressing defense, there, and it really proved far more effective than I thought it ever could have been. Once 30 seconds into it, we realized what was going on there. I was like, the hell? And credit to Darren and Mika. They came up with something. They found something. With that, is that going to be an every game sort of thing? I don't know. But it's nice to know that there's bring it back to the golf discussion. Another club in the bag. They can be able to choose from.
And we've been saying that speed is not something that we see in every area of the field for the kicker. So if you're able to get a player with pace on the field in a different way, that's helpful, because you never know when you might need a little injection of pace when that's not something the majority of your team has in their locker.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One guy who does have pace that's not Hayden Anderson, it's Josh Kirkland. And boy, did that boy have a breakout performance after coming on shortly before the 60th minute. I think Elliot was hyping him up on here last week, saying, "Oh, Kirky scores, his place is going to blow up." Yup.
Correct.
Yeah.
We will never tell him that he was right, but he might have got that one right.
We're still waiting on a Section O end goal, but we got 2 pretty damn good ones to open his account at City Stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. I think within the first 5 minutes, he comes on. He's got the ball in the net in the second half, and it was really just nice, simple, delayed 1-2 with Chandler. Like he got the ball delivered to Chandler. He just kept on with the run, and had a nice Chandler. Those are 2 words that are hard to say one after another. Fed it right through, and just a classy professional finish against the keeper. There. One that I don't know if last year he scores that chance if he gets it. This year he seemed to have all the confidence in the world. You know, going in and taking care of business.
Yeah, that goal, I think that we're I'm seeing a reoccurring theme here um with Westchester. Every single one of our goals so far up to this third one, there are mistakes from the defense, and this one you can't put too much on the back line. It's the midfield. No one in the midfield is trying to break up that matchup, and because of that, one of their center backs has to move forward out of position to try and close something down. I mean, when when Kirkland gets the ball, he's not he's not there's no pressure. It goes over, no pressure. Then one the center back is like, I got to put pressure on him. Moves forward, and in the meantime, center mids are just kind of jogging, moseying on back to the back line, and that just leaves that wide open space where their left back and the other center back cannot close that gap quickly enough when the first center back, number 4, Pierre, drives forward. So again, a great way to capitalize off of that. I love the vision on that, to see that pass and to slot that ball through. And what was it, O'Dwyer?
Mm-hmm.
To slot that ball through. Well done. Well done. Just beautiful.
Yeah, and a quick sidebar on O'Dwyer. I know he's, we're not seeing him on the score sheet in numbers that we might have gotten used to last season, but one word that really comes to mind and just so far this season is tidy for him. He's on the ball composure has been so impressive this season. His touch feels, I don't know what he was doing in the offseason, but he has been pulling tricks out of his locker. The way he has been able to get the ball away from whatever player is marking him in the midfield, wherever in the midfield he is, because he kind of seems to be a player that is still in that sort of jack of all trades where they kind of need him most. He kind of is popping up at in random places on the field. Still, getting forward, but he's become even more similar to like a Neil Seufert, where he's like become less visible because he's gotten better, because he is so tidy and does every time he gets the ball makes a correct decision, a small correct decision. It's just been wild to see him go, from a squad player that we hardly remarked on like 3 seasons ago to our top goal scorer 2 seasons ago to like a quiet midfield machine who is pulling assists like the quick 1-2s, playing a perfect through ball but he was a defensive central midfielder. Like this was never his role. And he's like stepped into this like so subtly that you almost don't even notice he's there half the time. So I've been continually impressed that he went from a player who was doing something that he'd never been expected to do in his career last season, but has been able to step back from that this season and continue to contribute quietly and effectively. So yeah, I've just been very impressed.
And also sometimes very loudly too, which is also fun.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know where that left foot
I
came
think.
from, but I mean,
Mhm.
it is pinpoint, lately. So if you want to go find, next off season, go find a second left foot like that, or I don't even know what he's going to find next off season because he keeps adding
Right.
something else that we didn't think was possible.
Yeah, I think basically we're at the point now where O'Dwyer is looking like Lewis McKicker's version of like James Milner. I mean, you can kind of he seems, wherever he's needed, he seems to be able to handle plugging up the gaps wherever he's needed, and he's kind of a jack of all trades, Swiss Army knife type of player, and that's always valuable to have on a squad. Always someone who you can, in the case of emergency, can you drop back and play the 6? Yeah, sure, got it, coach. Like that's very valuable. So yeah, that's fire for you. He can bang in the goals. He can be your target striker. He's got some footwork. He can lay some playmaking passes. He can break up, stuff defensively in the midfield. All around great player.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll swing back to Kirkland and Chandler in a little bit because we want to end on a good note here. Uh, so we've been talking about a lot of the good things that came out of this game with the kickers. It was a 4-4 game, so wasn't all roses. Unfortunately, I think one of the guys out there who really kind of embodied the highs and the lows the game was James Sneddon. So we saw a couple great saves that he pulled out that again kind of going back to stuff we were talking about last year. It's like this kid just doesn't know better than to not throw his body around into the post and all over the place. Sometimes like you, you don't need to always do all that. You can save yourself some future pain right here. But he's like, nah, I'm good. I got this. So he's definitely saved us some goals that way. Unfortunately, on Saturday, he might have been in the, you know, the seasonal spirit of giving as well.
Yeah, that was a tough.
Yeah.
That was.
I think
Well, y'all want to take it,
one
or
of those games.
Just go for it, Shanir.
The first goal was, I think it was just a panic moment. I think one thing it's very rare that we see Snedden that far out of his box, and I think he kind of felt like a fish out of water and was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm running the goal. I probably just need to hit this really hard and hope it goes down the field." And he just kind of panicked. And I mean, with you, it's, I mean, it's whatever. It's all right. I
yeah.
mean,
So,
I can see that being
so I read that.
a
I read that differently than you did then, because I didn't read it as panic. I read it as like supreme confidence that did not come off right. Right? Because there were a few different times during the game where like he would collect the ball in the box and like he would sprint forward and launch the ball downfield. And a couple of times it came off and got us going on a break. A few times it was immediate turnover, but it's back down the field. No big deal necessarily. I think his confidence has gotten so strong in his ability to play the ball with his feet that he saw the situation. He's like, "Oh, I can thread this pass," and he didn't.
That's what stuck out to me was how unusual of a ball it was for him. Like, like I don't know. Yeah, it could have been either, but like he never plays that pass, like a low, clear. Like he doesn't do that very often.
Yeah, that's why I really panic because Obregon is making a beeline for him. I mean, he looked like an Olympic sprinter heading towards Sneddon as Sneddon is closing in on this ball. And I think seeing Obregon, he kind of panicked. And I think in that panic, I don't know. I think he only sees Obregon and was like, I need to kick the ball as far away from this guy as possible or just kind of get it past him. And does not see Powder. And Powder is right there. And I think just like I said, the panic of it, because like when you look at it over, you see Obregon is running at him like he owes him money. And
I mean, he did play for Charlotte. He might not have got paid all the way last year.
Well, that is a good point. But yeah, no, I think if Sneddon tries to look up or take a touch there, Obregon is getting the ball, no doubt.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the simple solution here is, try to kick it over top of the old stand.
Right.
Right.
Which is what he normally
Yeah.
does, to be fair. Like we've it's like he saw how burned the team was in that cursed final Akira season by the ways playing out of the back goes wrong, that he on the whole does not have an aversion to just whacking it like in danger, which is why it was so odd that he did that, because normally he will just hit it far and long. And
Yeah. So
hopefully, lesson learned. Every one of these is a lesson learned.
the piece of all of this that offends me even more is that the league nominated that goal for goal of the week. Since when is an empty net goal of the week worthy?
No.
Okay. Goal number 2 that they scored?
yeah, no.
Yes. That was a nice goal.
Again, a Darwin Espinal lookalike was on the field. He saw what Darwin has been able to do. He was taking notes. Darwins are still more beautiful because this had it. It didn't have that like specificity to it that Darwins do, where they curve around and like hit square. Like they're so beautifully placed. This one had that just kind of like Hail Mary arc to it that ended up in the corner. Not to say it wasn't a beautiful goal, but Darwins are so precise that this was definitely a copycat. This is a copycat we're talking about.
Yeah, I would say going back to Sneddon, this is one where you just gotta hang your hat up, say like, you know what, put your hands up and say that you got that, because he saved an amazing one earlier on.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar strike heading towards the corner, and he just plucks it out of the corner beautifully. I think you only get one of those. You only get one of those a game where you can actually get to it, because those are very difficult to get to as a goalkeeper.
Well,
So
he also had the one in the second half where they had basically a point blank header from 3 yards out, and he just throws his body across the goal and is able to save it. Goes out for a corner. They scored on the corner kick that came right after, which I don't know if we want to talk about that at all. Not a short corner, but it was, a direct driven pass to the top of the box, and McGlynn just absolutely ropes it into the goal. Like,
it was how they drew it up. They drew that one up in training.
Absolutely,
it worked. We'll see.
Yeah.
It always works. It works the first time, and then you see if it works again. So
yeah, it's one of those situations where especially since we talked about earlier, they had a bunch of big boys on that team. So I think anyone playing them, and especially with any corner that they've had before, it's been, across into the box, and we're getting later and later in the game. So at this point right now, we're like, all right, we don't want to let them go ahead. We don't want to, mess things up for us. So it's like mark those big men, and they're forgetting there's also the top of the 18 to worry about. And kudos to them. Who was it? Was it Potter who struck that?
McGlynn scored
Yeah,
that one.
no, who was it? Uh, okay, yeah, Adewale. Yeah, he's really sitting really far back, like almost. If you are one of the Lakers players marking someone at the box, you look at the position where it's served in, you're like, he has nothing to do with this. He's sitting back to make sure that if we win the ball, we don't have an easy break, because he was far back, and literally as soon as the corner kick is taken, then he comes into frame, and it's like, okay, he came from far away. So kudos to them. Well done. And with a box that crowded, I know with the way Sneddon reacted, he saw it late. There's no way he would have been able to react to that with all those bodies in front of him.
Yeah. So a little bit of a bummer at that point. Kind of suck the air out of the crowd. and then, well, what didn't suck the air. What happened next does not suck the air out of the crowd. It infuriates, the crowd like almost to a level that I haven't seen too often from the masses at City Stadium. Yeah, it's not hard to rile up the folks in Section O. That's not exactly a challenge, to do. You get everybody else, around, pissed off. You've accomplished something, and uh, this one came courtesy of the referee on the day. So we're at 97th, I guess probably actually happened more like 95th minute. Uh, they get a free kick, floated it into the box. Next thing we know, pointing the penalty spot. And I've watched this back quite a few times, and I'm pretty sure she called Dak, for the foul, but I'm not sure exactly what she called. Either of you been able to sort that out through watching replays?
I think when you look before the ball is served in, um, there's a bit of a tussle between Dak and was the was it Joel who got fouled, supposedly
I
fouled
don't know.
inside the box? Between Dak and Joel, a bit they're kind of pushing and shoving, jockeying for position. And I think Joel gets like the last shove on Dak and starts running forward, and then Dak's arms go up around his shoulder. And then I guess he feels that contact and he decides, well, if you're holding, I'm going to go ahead now. And he kind of goes down and kind of takes back with him, which kind of, in the eyes of probably the referee, incriminates Jack even more. But that was very, very soft. Very soft penalty kick. And you as a referee, need to expect some jostling and pushing and shoving in the box on any type of service inside the box. A corner kick, a wide free kick, a deep free kick. You're going to get some pushing and shoving. If you look at, you look at any corner kick taken in this game, there's pushing and shoving happening. So are you going to call all of those as penalties? If you're not going to call all of those, I don't think this one should be one at all.
I think also I don't remember any Westchester players calling for it. Like it's not like anyone actually like thought there was a penalty committed. It wasn't like all their arms were going up. Maybe incidentally, but it was so. She made the call so quickly that there wasn't like a moment where people were like raising their hands, like expecting there to be a penalty called. At least from my perspective.
This is what really shows how out of nowhere this penalty kick call is made. After the ball gets cleared out, I think it was it O'Dwyer who cleared it out? The free kick comes in, O'Dwyer clears it out, and the ref blows the whistle. And Westchester, one of their center backs, immediately thinks that it's something called on them, like an offside or something. And he has that reaction, like, "What did we do?" And then he realized, "Oh, you're calling a PK? Okay, fine." Like, so he's like, he didn't even think there was anything. So not a single white jersey put their hand up like, "Hey, there's a foul." Joel, who went down, didn't even look like he was trying to call for a foul. He just he lost my footing as me and Dak both have our arms on each other.
Yeah.
And I just happened to go down first. And in that situation, it's just no one was asking for it. No one was looking for it. No one expected it. I don't know what the referee saw to give that a penalty kick. That's any different from anything that goes on in the box at any corner kick on the game.
Yeah. And I will say, I've said on this podcast before, I don't think referees should shy away from making a meaningful call because they don't want to be the person who influences the outcome of the match, because we've seen referees abandon their responsibility for calling penalties because it's obvious that they feel that in doing so, they would be like influencing the outcome. They'd be putting a finger on the scales. This was not one of those circumstances where if the play had continued normally, it was some sort of miscarriage of justice or her refusing to act in some sort of, misguided way of trying to let the game play out without her interfering. This was, in my opinion, overly inserting yourself in a match that up to that point, I thought she'd refereed very fairly. So it was also a little unusual because I thought she'd had a pretty solid game for 95 minutes. And so this was also unusual because she didn't indicate at any point that she was the type to be making these sort of soft, unexpected calls that typically you'd get a sense from a referee that this is something they do. Not a sense at all.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably heard some of the same grumbling, I did in the crowd, especially like the last 10 minutes or so. It's like, another yellow, what are you doing? Our guys were getting really grabby in the midfield, the last 10 minutes when we were just trying to hang on, for a while. So I didn't really have a problem with most of those cards because they weren't even trying to be subtle about it, I thought. This is one where, maybe like absolute letter of the law, there's a foul there. But like Shanir was saying, there's probably 5 fouls on every single, corner kick and free kick that go into the box. And especially in that situation, you better be like 1,000% certain that, there's an absolute stonewall right there. And I'm not sure.
I'm not convinced.
Honestly, I think actually I've looked this one over far too many times than I need to. But another thing that could have made Joel lose his footing is actually it wasn't O'Dwyer who cleared the ball. It was Franca. I think his foot hit Franca's foot as Franca is planting his feet to jump to head the ball, and I think he tripped on Franca's planted foot. So, which even further is like, no. So Franca is literally standing there watching the ball. He plants his feet to get himself to jump to head the ball out, and as he plants his feet, Joel goes by him. One of his legs hits his as he's tussling with Dak, and he goes down. So, to be honest with you, this is more of a situation of Joel pulled Dak down than Dak fouled Joel. So, again,
but you know what? You know what though? This was a gift, given to us, and Obregon, doing his little cheeky Panenka, you score there, coming over to the fans along with the entire Westchester team, including staff, including their keeper who's been shipping goals left and right all game, their assistant coaches, everyone, talking all their mess, and little tiny 4 foot, nothing, number 11 on the bench, kindly reminding us all, oh, there's time. And you know what? You know what, Shorty? You're right, my man. You were right. You are the visionary, here. Because there was time. Mm-hmm. And since we are on Easter weekend, slightly blasphemous, they thought they crucified our chances. And on the 3rd minute, Chandler rose again. This time to head it across to Kirkland who could score. But massive flashbacks to 4th of July weekend, when Chandler scores in the 90+11. This time he gets the assist in the 90+9, 90+10, something like that. I mean, it felt like the ball was played in from roughly the same area of the field. So, something about these last minute moments down the scoreboard end of the field where Chandler, we talked all about his foot skills. OG Chandler O'Dwyer gets his noggin on the ball. This time plays it right back across, and Josh Kirkland just sweeps the ball in. Insta legend, gets that goal, and place explodes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You may give us we may give you 1 goal. We may give you 2 goals. We may give you 3 goals. You may even end up scoring 4 goals. But do not let the Richmond Kickers get a free kick after the 97th minute of a game at City Stadium on the weekend of a holiday, because we will score a goal off a set piece from the left-hand side.
Off of Chandler's head.
Off of Chandler's head. Chandler's head will be involved. All the stars aligned. And that's enough.
Yeah, this goal was very special for me because it's reminiscent of the last goal I saw at City Stadium before I moved up here. That 4th of July weekend you talked about, the Henry Darby, that last minute goal at Chandler. I was in tears when that goal went in, knowing that this was my last time at City Stadium before moving up here to Minnesota. And this just brought back that memory. That was, my wife was a little upset with me because I'm yelling and screaming here in the house when that goal goes in. And yeah, so it just I like this new character trait that we have. This never say die, it isn't over till it's over mentality. I think we haven't really had that in the past, and this season and last season, we really saw this Kickers team always look like, even when things go really bad, no heads are hanging. There's always this sense of hope, this sense of we're gonna give you 100% until that ref blows the final whistle. And this was a perfect example of that because they fought hard, they played well, they did a great job. Of course, it came up to 3-3, and they're still trying to see if maybe we can get a winner, and then that penalty kick happens, and any other team, especially with how dubious that call was, that would have knocked the sails right out of almost any team in the world. And for us to come back after that and say, no, it ain't over some of these things. And here we are. Oh man, I had goosebumps, and I seriously was like, I need a nap because this was like the second in 3 days for me after the Manchester United Lyon game on Thursday. I was like, oh my goodness, my teams are going to give me heart attack after heart attack. It was, yeah. So that's why when we started, you asked me how I was. It was a very stressful weekend. Two of the 3 teams that I enjoy watching, well, actually all 3 of them decided to wait till the end to win the game, and or to salvage some points, and it's
Yeah. Well, like I said, it was a weird one because for me, obviously at the end, it feels like you stole a point, but at the same time feels like, threw a couple points away as well because I they just dominated so heavily, for the first, 75 minutes of the game. So it's like you get the elation, but at the same time it's like, but it could have been more, but I was so happy that they scored and got something out of it. So
mixed with the fact that, especially that 4th goal for Westchester, honestly, they didn't actually commit the foul. Like, there was no fault there.
yeah.
And so it's frustrating in that regard because they didn't actually throw away the 3-3. And maybe without that penalty, they don't go up, like, there's no revision, like, oh, and they would have won the game 4-3, blah, blah, blah. Probably not. It probably finishes 3-3 without that penalty, which fine. And maybe we're in a worse mood because the Kickers always threw away the lead. They conceded every time. This, at least, that it was unfortunate that they got that 4th, that go ahead, but in terms of I guess the only upside is that this was the only time the kickers actually came back into the game as opposed to throwing a lead away, which they had.
Absolutely. And as sports fans, right, you live for the moments, right? You don't necessarily think back and remember like the run of the mill 2-0 win or the
I'd also forgotten that James had kicked that ball. Like until I mean I watched the highlights and everything, but like until we were actually going through the goals, I actually forgot how bad that mistake was because of the excitement of how it ended.
Exactly, but we remember the Chandler Henny Darby goal. We're gonna remember this Kirkland goal. You remember the big moments along the way, and this is what we were able to get out of this game. A real benchmark moment. Again, something that's going to put Josh Kirkland kind of into the legendary stories. Richmond kickers history of hey, that time he came off the bench and got the 2 goals, including a 90+9 to get the point that was stolen away back. Again, and who knows? This could be what kickstarts him moving forward. Into being that player that if you listen to the interview with Darren last week, he believes that Kirkland's going to become the guy in a year or two, and hey, hard to say making a poor assessment based off of how this weekend went.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest with you, there's apart from there's the error at the beginning from James Nedden, but you look at the other 3 goals that Westchester scored. An isolated moment of brilliance, an oversight that any team could have made, and a bad call by a referee. And here we are at 4-4. You're looking at you see how the game is just it's all about inches and millimeters. And in this situation, apart from the first goal, I don't think there's too much fault that we can put on the kickers for the other 3. Like I said, just a moment of brilliance. That oversight for the corner kick. I mean, what's gonna do?
And because I am nothing but not petty, I will just point out that again the kickers were in full control until like the 75th minute when Payne had to get subbed off. They brought in, they made a couple subs right there, and the game changed at that moment. Unfortunately, so I will take that dagger and continue to stab it into the carcass. You're right there.
And it bears repeating that again, the stoppage was created due to the excessive celebration of the away team in front of the home support. So although it's infuriating in the moment, we've now seen on 2 occasions how celebrating as though you've earned a result in a match comes back to haunt you when you overdo it and create just a small window at the other end of the field for the other team to take advantage of.
Okay, Shanir, let me ask you this question here. Were there any common threads between those 2 celebrations?
Besides me hating them?
Were there any specific player who happened to be on both of those teams?
No humble gimmick from him tonight. Fake respect gimmick. Yeah, he's now done that twice at City Stadium and walked away with it. The loser's not quite the right word, but they feel like the losers based on how much they celebrated when they thought they won it.
It was so weird too that none of them happened to come back around the corner on the way back to the locker room after they seemed to have a lot of fun over in that corner a couple minutes before. Weird.
Nobody wanted to come say hi after the game and reminisce on old times.
Yeah. I wanted to let number 11 know his watch worked. He was right. There was time.
Oh goodness. I think it's just I don't think Payne would have wanted to show his face in front of Sexton after that performance at all. Bolaños maybe I think he was inconsequential, but I don't think it was as stark as how much Darwin beat Payne down. I mean, I could see Johnny B coming over and saying, "Hey," but Payne is probably like, "That was embarrassing. I'm not even gonna go over there."
In fairness, it did look like he was thinking about it at one point, but probably didn't look like the right moment, for it. So,
Yeah.
so be it.
And it goes to show when you chase the money, he might have been, hoping we were going to welcome him back, but unfortunately we were having too much fun celebrating our own team and our current players. And turns out these salary chasers who don't want to play for broke here in City Stadium, they also don't get the hero's welcome when they come back because we've moved on. We've got bigger and better things to celebrate, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thanks for the memories.
Team Darwin. We did get, and we did get an email in, that really tells a great story about others' experiences at the game too. So on this podcast, we talk about a lot from kind of the hardcore perspective, right? Those of us who maybe a little too into it at times, but so this one came in,
There's no such
email came in from. So what?
there's no such thing as too into it.
Sure. But so we got this email from Kara, and I just want to kind of go through and read this out a little bit. So I think Elliot kind of summarized it in here. So this is through Elliot's words here. But Kara told us about a young boy named Sheki. I might have mispronounced that. My apologies if I did. Who just turned 8 at the end of March. His mom, Elmisha, is someone Kara worked with years ago. If you know Kara, she keeps in touch with just about everyone because she genuinely loves people. Sheki is autistic and tends to be a little bit of a wanderer. He's also been going through a tough time recently. They came out to the game. We're sitting towards the far end, so he could be close for the kickoff. But he saw the smoke bombs, the energy in Section O, and he told his mom he wanted to be there. So they made their way over. Paige handed him a drum, and from that minute, he was all in. He played so hard, he blistered his hand, but he was really happy, really, really happy. On the way home, he told his mom it was the best day he's ever had. So that's the kind of impact our community that we've built over the years genuinely can have. Help to create a moment of pure joy for young child who needed it maybe more than any of us knew or realized at the moment. We helped him feel seen, included, celebrated, and now we might have him locked in. He might be Kickers fan for life. So Kara, Elnisha, Shaky, all you guys, thank you. That's part of why we do what we do, right? It's fun for us, but also bringing others in, to the fun as well, and being able to continually grow the community. You look down there, it's not just your stereotypical 20 somethings, just acting the fool. We have you know kids under 10 in there. Dustin, who used to be one of those kids, was back down for the weekend. That first of all, that dude is tall now. Weird.
This
And
kid is too tall. I'm glad
we got like,
he came back. I love the kid.
yeah, like once upon a time, I was one of the young ones down there. I'm definitely not on the younger end of the group anymore. And you got folks who prop I had to guess, and in their 60s and 70s in our little group of community. So anybody's listening who doesn't hang out, feel free, come on down. Like, we might be a little weird, we might be a little crazy, but we're all nice and happy to let anybody join in and in the way that you want to participate. If you want to get deep into it, you can get deep into it. If you want to just kind of take it in, you can take it in. There's a spot for everybody.
Mm-hmm. We joke about being sickos, but nobody has to be a sicko. We choose it. We choose it. And all the associated devastation and elation that accompanies that. But you can be normal too if you want.
It's not encouraged, but it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, let your hair down a little bit. But honestly, I know my first memory of Red Army was um in 2013 U.S. Open Cup game against DC United, and
Hmm.
I was sitting on the complete opposite side of the stadium, um, than Section O, and when they decided at the end to have the penalty kicks on the side that I was sitting on, the entire Red Army just ran over to the side that I was sitting on, and now I'm all of a sudden like in the middle of the Red Army, and I was like, "This, yeah, I'm never sitting over here again. I'm gonna be over there with those guys next time,"
Yeah,
because it was. I was like, I was missing that the whole game. Like, what is going on?
yeah. If you go back and look at some of those photos, you might see some familiar faces wearing black. So
Yeah, I know, I know. There were some of them that stayed over there that did not belong in Section O, but all the true
they've been
Section O,
assimilated.
you know, all the Red Army folks came over to that side, and now all of a sudden I was just surrounded by the energy, this noise, this and growing up just loving soccer and having experienced similar growing up at Foxborough and then Gillette Stadium. Um, it really felt great, and just the authenticity of it, just the fact that it's just a bunch of people just hanging out and just having a good time and just being there for the guys on the field. Um, I've actually heard from players that have come to City Stadium to play against the Kickers. Some players who have been on some couple of guys who were on loan were picked from DC United. Just saying that there's nothing like that energy that the Red Army brings. And that's saying something from someone who comes from DC United, where Barra Brava is the first ultra supporters group of the MLS. Um, it's saying something coming from someone who's playing for DC United that we bring the energy, and it's a good energy. Yeah, sometimes we're yelling we're we're yelling profanity and abuse at referees and players of the other team, but it's just always a wonderful experience with the Red Army, rain or shine. I remember there was one I was it was a torrential downpour, and by the time they came back from the lightning, you know, they had a lightning delay, and by the time we came back from there, we literally were the only ones in the stadium, and it's just
Yeah.
those are the moments you remember.
Yeah, well, the nice thing was on Saturday we're not the only ones in the stadium. 5,000, plus, in attendance. I'll be honest, I thought it was more. So
Yeah.
It looked it looked like more even on the broadcast. There were very few pockets of space, and especially when Kirkland's goal went in. I mean, I don't think 5,000 people can get that loud. I mean, it got loud, got really loud. It
yeah,
even got to a point where I think that I don't know if the broadcast people turned the mic down so that they didn't blow out like the speakers or something.
I don't know if the people running these broadcasts are advanced enough to be able to adjust the mics mid-game. So
Or at least maybe just turn it away from the fans, like, woo, that's too loud. That's going to break the mic.
We do what we
but
can.
yeah, so looking ahead this coming weekend, a little bit of a change of pace. The team heads out to Louisville, for the first Jaeger game, of the season. What are y'all thinking? What do you want to see? Going into a game against really kind of the 10,000-pound giant of the championship.
Mm, I don't know.
So
I would just,
I'll fill
I
the
think
space then.
I would see them. Sorry. um,
Yeah,
I
I,
think something of the sort of just give them a fight, give them a bloody nose. Honestly, I want to see us stand up to them and say, look, you may be in a league above, but we're not going to go down without a fight. And if the kickers don't show Louisville a lot of respect, I'll be happy. I mean, just don't show them too much respect. Just go there, punch them in the teeth, whatever happens, happens. But go in there and believe that you're at their level.
yeah. So looking at the schedule, so Louisville is currently unbeaten on the season. They knocked Loudoun out of the Open Cup last week. 4 wins, 2 draws in the league so far. Uh, but they got a Thursday game coming up against Lexington as well, and you've got to think that they've got their eyes on that one, like their first matchup against their, I don't know if you want to call them an in-state rival because Lexington, lol, uh, you know, but you don't want to lose that one if you're them. So I don't know what Louisville's going to throw at us. I say, you know, Jaeger's really a 4 game, sprint. This is going to be probably the best team we play in it. I say go balls to the wall on this one. See if you can get something out of it. If you do, great. Jaeger's in play. If not, okay, so be it. And then you can punt the other 3 games, later on because I just can't believe that a wild card is going to be a viable option, in this, even though we are scoring plenty of goals, this year. Uh, but go for broke right now. Maybe it'll work, and then if not, we got some rotation games for later in the year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think because like the flip side to Louisville being decent in the league, and maybe having their eyes on competing in the league, maybe they don't care about competing on 2 fronts. They don't want to be challenging for the Jaeger as well. So they might be sacking it off and focusing on the league. So that could play in our favor as well. I don't know much about I don't watch the championship because my team is not in the championship. So I apologize, but I have no interest in what goes on over there. But this is a tester for all these teams to see whether or not their ego that prevented them from playing in this competition last season is still a driving force and being embarrassed to lose to USL 1 teams, or if this is a gesture towards having a more robust cup culture in the US where you are competing on multiple fronts and you have to pick and choose, where you're going to allocate your resources. So it's kind of an interesting test of sort of the limits of what resources these teams have, especially those that at least now are competing near the top of the table versus what the ego of these leagues have kind of shown us in the past about cup set culture. Are we going to be seeing cup set graphics from the USL 1 if a USL 1 team beats a championship team? Are we going in that direction with this where ego is brought into this, little boys versus the big boys, or is this sort of going to be treated as a USL Cup top to bottom? These groups are the hand you've been dealt, and you got to take each game as they come, not, kind of play into these like interleague politics that we've seen play out in the past.
Yep. And as a reminder, play 4 games, in the group stage. Our group is Charlotte, Lexington, Loudoun, Louisville, North Carolina, and us. So don't get Loudoun. Play each of the other teams once, 2 home, 2 away. Winner of the group goes on, and then I think it's the top 2 second place teams move on. Not necessarily second place teams, I should say. Unless they change the rules and I missed it, it's the top 2 most goals scored of non-group winners advance. So in theory, you could lose every game and find your way through, which would be hilarious. All right, Kate, Chenier, anything else you all want to chime in about before we sign off? Because we've had a lot to say tonight.
I had one quick thing, which is that it was for the W night, and that was acknowledging the fact that the Ivy season will be starting in just a couple weeks. So make sure you have either your season tickets or tickets to the home opener on May 10th. Really excited to get that season started. We've got a new head coach. Those of you who have been following the Kickers for a while will remember his name, Owusu Sekiri. He's a So very exciting to see a former Kickers player now coaching back at City Stadium and sort of helping raise the next generation of players representing Richmond at City Stadium. So really exciting. I got to talk to him on Saturday. Should have an interview coming on Vinecast with him before the season starts to kind of get to know him as a coach a little bit more and what his hopes and goals are for the season ahead. So really exciting that the Ivy season is almost here. It feels like it's so far away, and then all of a sudden it'll be here, and it'll be a sprint, not a marathon. It'll be a really hectic couple weeks, but it should be really exciting to see that team compete at City Stadium again.
Absolutely. So clear out your May, clear out your June, because you're going to need to, because there's a lot of soccer going on in Richmond coming up. Schneer, any final comments for you?
Just been praying that Kickers don't do that to me again. Don't do that to me again. That was a very, very stressful game to watch, but enjoyable, still enjoyable. Great moments in that game, and I'm loving watching the Kickers this season, even in the ups and downs. They look a very different team, and it looks like things are actually starting to click and to build pretty well. And there's a big shout out to the Red Army. I miss you guys. Can't wait to be back at the stadium at some point. Whenever I'm in town, if there's a game that weekend, I will be there. And yeah, love you guys.
Absolutely, my man. Absolutely love you too. Also love all of you, listening, watching, however you're taking in, this episode of River City 93. You want to keep up with, all things that we're doing. Like, share, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, Blue Sky. I don't know where else Elliot has accounts these days. Follow all of them. They're great. We're great. We're all amazing. So, River City 93 everywhere. So interact with us, ask us questions, tell us how smart we are, tell us, how, great we look on, the camera. It's all good. We know it's all true. Tell us. We like to hear good things about ourselves. But seriously, let anytime you have questions, for us, you want us to talk about it on here, shoot us a message, any which way, and we'll be happy to throw our opinions out there. Because there's one thing we're good at, it's having opinions. All right. Well, Kate, Schneer, thank you for sharing your opinions with us, tonight about all the things that happened on, Saturday. Definitely do appreciate it, and thank you all for listening. And we will talk to you next week. Bye.